Well, guys, Jake Paul got us again. He got one of our guys again. Jake Paul defeated Mike Perry last night via 6th round TKO in boxing. Conor McGregor responds to Mike Perry and Jake Paul. Alex Pereira gets called out. There's a lot to talk about in regards to this fight, so stick around to hear my thoughts on Paul versus Perry in boxing. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. All right, guys, so we are here the day after Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Jake Paul with the win, unfortunately. And there's quite a bit to talk about. So first off, we'll get into the pre-fight lead up. First off, this fight was supposed to be Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. It ended up being Mike Perry instead of Mike Tyson, so a different Mike. That fight's still going to happen, but honestly, at this point, if you're not convinced that Jake Paul doesn't whoop on Mike Tyson, then you're just living in the 90s. You're living in the early 90s, looking at Mike Tyson as the guy he was 30 plus years ago at this point. So if we're being objective, Jake Paul, younger, bigger, on performance enhancers, in my opinion. He's going to beat every guy that he fights. He's not going to put himself in a position to lose because the train stops at a bad loss. With Tommy Fury, real boxer, close to his size or same size, and that was his only loss, but he survived. Split decision. If he goes in there and fights somebody that will actually brutally KO him, like H2O Sylve got knocked out last night, he won't sign the contract. Jake says, sign the contract, blah, blah, blah. And he's actually very good. He's carried this over from his YouTube days. His manipulation of perception that a lot of people have of his fights is impressive because he is not a bad boxer, but he puts himself in positions to be like, wow, Jake Paul just whooped on this guy. But then when you look closer, it's like, it's not, oh, Jake Paul just whooped on former UFC fighter, bare knuckle champ, bare knuckle star, whatever. He whooped on a guy that took the fight on 4 weeks notice, 5 weeks notice, and is probably 30 pounds lighter on fight night. And that's the first thing that I wanted to get into was the weights of these two guys leading into this fight, because you have Jake Paul calling people out and fighting people that are literally 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds. Like, this was supposed to be a heavyweight fight with Mike Tyson, and they made it at 200 pounds with Mike Perry. Now, just to clarify, just so you guys know, Mike Perry was a welterweight in the UFC, so 170 pounds, and he's competed in bare knuckle at 185. So even that, which is a stretch for him, 185 pounds, is 15 pounds lower than this weight class. So first, we're going to start off with the weigh-ins. You got Mike Perry right here weighing in. You'll see here, 96.
196.6.
So 196.6 for a 200-pound fight. Nobody cuts weight to come in 3.5 pounds below the limit anyway. What that tells me, Mike Perry bulked absolutely as much as he could, close to this 200-pound limit. He even talked about, I made a video about it with my prediction and lead up to the fight. He talked about how hard it is to train enough to get ready for a fight and also eat enough calories to be bulking. So when you're doing something like fighting where the training is so heavy on the cardio, you're burning so many calories, getting up from 185 to 200 is a tall task. So 200-pound weight limit, he comes in 3.5 pounds underneath it. That tells me that is as heavy as Mike Perry could get. Now, with that said, let's take a look at Jake. So you see here he misses, and he has to take off his underwear and strip completely to weigh in. He looks sucked out right there. He looks really sucked out. Okay, so there you have 200. So Jake Paul needing to strip to make 200 pounds. That tells me Jake Paul had a tough weight cut, like an MMA fighter type of weight cut for this fight. And the reason that I say that is because Jake Paul was ready for a heavyweight fight with Mike Tyson. This one, they settled on 200 pounds. So Jake Paul was probably planning on coming into the Tyson fight at 220, 230, something like that, to account for Mike Tyson being such a stocky guy. Even though Mike Tyson's only about 5'10", 5'11", he's going to come in heavy, stocky. Jake Paul is assuming Mike Tyson hits hard. wants to have the size to take those blows. And so he comes in at 200 pounds, obviously struggled to make the weight. So that's what I wanted to point out first. The weight played a big role in this fight because you saw in the first round, Mike Perry got knocked over. And it literally wasn't a knockdown. It was a knock over because of the size. Mike Perry said that after the fight. Later on, the size added up and he did get knocked down. He kind of got his ass beat. I'm not going to lie to you. But the size is something to consider very, very heavily when you're talking about these Jake Paul fights. He's fighting people way smaller than them. This is not a secret, but I wanted to talk about specifically the weigh-ins because that's a big part of this. Even though they were close at weigh-ins on fight night, it was probably Mike Perry 200 pounds, Jake Paul 225, 230. And we have weight classes for a reason. We have weight classes for a reason. The power, the strength, the size, weight makes a difference in all of those things. The only time that Jake Paul fought somebody close to his size or the same size as him, he lost to Tommy Fury. That just shows you this is what's going to happen with Jake Paul fights. He's never going to fight somebody. If he fights Alex Pereira, like he called him out, he's going to call for him at like 175 pounds. There's going to be no heavyweight Pereira fighting Jake Paul. I'm telling you. And as far as Mike Perry goes, Mike Perry looked terrible from a boxing standpoint. You quite literally saw how different bare knuckle boxing is from boxing with boxing gloves on is, because Mike Perry was going up against a bigger guy, standing in front of him, and also trying to duck out of the way while he was throwing jabs. You could tell he's used to getting cut by knuckles very easily in bare knuckle. So weight difference and change in sport slightly made things a lot heavier in Jake's favor than they already were. This is from MMA Fighting, and this is Conor McGregor's response to the Jake Paul win. He says, Jake Paul is the biggest piss bag I've ever seen in my life. 40-pound weight difference, juiced out of his head, still shitting himself in there. Nikisa, you should take him to Vegas. Oh, that's right, you could never. The Athletic Commission testing, real fighting. Bitch asses, you could never. And then calling out 60-year-old Mike Tyson fresh off of an in-flight medical emergency. I swear to God, a fat can of bitch piss. Most valuable piss bag. Conor's right, okay? Not just trying to glaze. Not just trying to, and this is funny too. Coked up Conor on a Saturday night. What's better than that? Twitter fingers McGregor there's some all-time tweets, dude. And so him saying, 40-pound weight difference, juiced out of his head, still shitting himself. Those are all things that I saw too. And we talked about it on the stream yesterday. Probably 30-pound weight difference. Maybe not 40, because that'd be 40-pound weight gain in 36 hours. But probably a 25, 30-pound weight difference. Still a few times got clipped by Mike Perry, and you saw Jake Paul's eyes go. You saw it where he's like, what did I get myself into? And then Nikisa, who is Jake Paul's business partner, Conor addresses him and says, you should take him to Vegas. All right, you could never. Testing, real fighting. Bitch asses, you could never. Calling out 60-year-old Mike Tyson off of an in-flight emergency. That's what I'm saying, is that Jake Paul would viciously, if this fight's going to happen with Mike Tyson, Jake Paul is going to viciously KO Mike. Mike is going to be snoozing, twitching. This is the fight from earlier in the card. H2O Sylve getting KO'd brutally by Lucas Bahdi after dominating the fight. This right here, this is how Jake Paul is going to leave Mike Tyson if they fight. I pray that fight doesn't happen. Big event. Serrano versus Taylor rematch as the co-main event. Huge card, I'm not going to lie. 60-year-old Mike Tyson, face down, snoozing, all of us regretting that the fight ever happened. So here's Jake Paul, and I agree with Conor on this. He's right about all this. So this is Jake Paul's response to Conor.
Conor's on Twitter all the time. He's on his yacht all the time, but guess where he's not? In the ring fighting me, so he can talk all the he wants, but the notorious MMA is scared of Jake Joseph Paul from Disney Channel. And I put that on my mama.
Thank you, everybody.
Jake Joseph Paul from Disney Channel. He's, Conor's not in the gym. All the stuff we've heard with Conor before. But here's the thing. And actually, these comments got it just right. Dude, you're 230. Conor's 175 bulked. Exactly. So Conor and Jake Paul is never going to happen. I'm telling you, I said this last night. Conor knows how much fighting Jake Paul devalues him. I think it's much more likely that Alex Pereira at some point was to fight Jake Paul, but Conor's not going to fight him ever. Now we move on to Conor's second tweet directed at Mike Perry. And he says, hey, Mike, you're released. You can go and compete in your smelly, dirty boxing championship thing. The smell of it. Good luck. You're fired at Bare Knuckle FC. We'll get to Mike Perry's response to Conor in just a second. Now, Conor is referring to Dirty Boxing Championship, which is what Mike Perry announced as his new promotion. Mike Perry announces Dirty Boxing Championship, dirtyboxing.tv. They're looking to have their very first event in September, but here it is. Mike Perry is holding a press conference right now. He's just announced a new combat sports promotion, Dirty Boxing Championship. Competitors will wear 5-ounce gloves. Mike has been working on this for a year. Mike is doing this with the Kawa family, Malky Kawa, Abraham Kawa. There's some managers. His managers at FRM, former Karate Combat president Adam Kovacs, who has been replaced by, what's his name? President Goat or something like that. And whatever he calls himself, the guy that runs Goat Shed, Kampai Pandas CEO Josh McLean. But that's what Conor was talking about in regards to dirty boxing. We also have Mike Perry showing off the gloves.
Everybody can understand.
Small gloves, elbows allowed, ground and pound. But both fighters can only stand on both feet, so you can't drop to a knee. 3x3 minute rounds, no broadcast deal. Mike says he's free to fight for them. 18-foot ring. Mike goes into his promoter mode immediately. So it's basically boxing with MMA gloves, elbows, and ground and pound, but you have to stay on your feet. So that right there is what Conor was talking about in regards to your smelly, dirty boxing championship thing. The smell of it, good luck, you're fired. Mike Perry went on to respond. Here's what he said.
He doesn't have a promotion because me and him are both owners of BKFC, so he can't fire me. We can fight in bare knuckle. Look at me. I lost to Jake Paul. Why don't you go fight Jake Paul and boxing with the gloves on? I think it would be worse than Conor McGregor versus Mayweather.
So there's what Mike had to say. I think this comment right here is true. Jake Paul does have hands. He does fight guys way smaller than him, though. So that's one thing to consider. But one thing to take a look at, Mike Perry and Conor McGregor are both owners here. So he can't... Wait, Perry just made the whole organization look like a joke? That's not true. Conor bought into BKFC. I assume Mike Perry was probably gifted a small percentage of equity for signing with them and with how much eyes he's brought to it. But anyways, there is Michael Perry. Loses to Jake Paul, fired from BKFC by Conor, opens up his own Dirty Boxing Championship with their first event set to be in less than 3 months from now. Actually, less than 2 months from now. Wow. And we move on from there to Jake Paul calling out Alex Pereira. They hopped on FaceTime almost immediately. Here you have Alex Pereira in line for some food, gets FaceTime by Jake Paul. Alex Pereira and them talking on FaceTime, calls him out, says he's going to decapitate him. Here's what Jake Paul had to say about it.
Any specific reason that you call out Alex Pereira? Obviously, a UFC contract would be tough to get him out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want everybody. I love this sport. And he's tweeted about wanting to go into boxing. We got him on the FaceTime right there in the ring. And I said, yo, can you get out of your contract? If he can get out of his contract, then let's run it. And so when I asked him that, he had a pause. He looked at his manager. These guys aren't their own bosses. So I want all the smoke. But at the end of the day, will Dana let him out? That's too big of a risk if I could embarrass his #1 praised fighter right now. But I want all the smoke. I want all the MMA guys. And I've beaten all of them. Who's next? He's the king right now of the UFC. So I want him. I'm going to decapitate him and dethrone him.
Okay, that would absolutely not happen. But this comment right here, I want Alex at 175 pounds. Agreed. I want all the MMA guys. All right, then go fight in the octagon then. One thing I did notice is that when they were Mike Paul, dude, I've been doing this the whole buildup. I've been saying Jake Perry and Mike Paul. I've been messing it up. But after the fight, in the ring, when they were being interviewed by Helwani, Jake Paul said PFL for MMA. Mike Perry sounded like he was down for MMA. So maybe we see Mike Perry take that $15 million offer over Nate Diaz, even though I think I'd rather still see Nate Diaz in MMA. Now, there's a few other things to talk about in regards to the card. First off, truly disturbing KO. Lucas Bahdi, Canadian, KO's H2O Sylve. Bahdi getting whooped on the whole fight. Sylve got so comfortable, was just cooking him in and out, hands down, uppercut, hook, bounce in, bounce out, change the angle. Really lighten him up without going all out for the KO. Kind of played with his food a little bit too much. He gets hit by a right hand, which I think the right hand KO'd him. Bahdi brought it right back with a lead hook. Vicious KO. I really don't know why the ref was so adamant about not letting Bahdi celebrate. It's like the biggest moment of his life. Don't really understand that. But also, Jake Paul putting on these fights has these MVP prospects, most valuable prospects is what he called Sylve. They ran an ad for it, showed some other fighters. Most of us are tired of the way that boxing builds its fighters. They get them to 20-0, 25-0 against total cans, and then they get a undefeated opponent for a title fight. And then the loser's career is basically over once they lose their 0. But Sylve was undefeated. He fought a guy that was 16-0 with a bunch of knockouts. So maybe Jake Paul's actually doing something positive in boxing by having prospects fight each other off rip. And then actually here, I just want to give a shout out to one of my favorite Instagram pages, CTE Society, fairly similar to Fight Society, but such a tasty combo. No 10 count, stopped early. And so, yeah, if you guys haven't, go check out CTE Society on Instagram. Very last thing I want to talk about, Jake Paul's walkout, extremely sus. You got the Balenciaga BDSM type of guys walking him out on this right here is this win. I don't know if it's win or W, but as pit crew members for Jake Paul, like NASCAR, and they're just spraying the, whatever. In my opinion, Jake Paul has some sort of like dream or like this thing that he wants to cosplay as the baddest guy in the world, and he has the resources and promotion to do it. He can put on these events, fight guys that are fairly reputable opponents where they can be like bare knuckle champ, Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, welterweight champ, all these things. But then when it really comes down to it, it's a huge mismatch as far as weight, boxing skill, all of that. Not Anderson Silva, but weight, age, size, boxing skill, everything being stacked in favor of Jake. He's basically cosplaying as a Canelo or a Conor, and he has the resources to make it happen. So it's weird, but I can't necessarily fault him. He's making a lot of money. So that's my take on Jake Paul. And the very last thing Jake Paul had to say is King of Violence gets beat up by fat Disney boy. Ha ha ha, LOL, LMAO, that must suck, rolling on the floor, hashtag humiliation, hashtag your mom, hashtag Olivia Rodrigo. If you saw the backstage stunts that Jake Paul was pulling, you'd actually laugh. For example, here's some of the stuff Jake Paul was posting, the Gladiator stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then also this was the skit they did like while Jake was getting his hands wrapped, I think.
Is Jake Paul the problem child with his product W? Such a marketer. Oh! His arm just came out of his body! Jake Paul's arm just got ripped out of his body! Wow, that's an angry little officer there. Jake Paul is holding his own arm. Can we get a doctor, please? Oh, that had to hurt. Wow, that cop is very... Is that a ticket? What is it? There's a fire there! Doctor, please help us!
But so there's that. Jake Paul gets the dub, beats Mike Perry, looking to get into a Mike Tyson fight, Conor McGregor fight, Alex Pereira fight. I think he loses all of those unless Conor's not on the sauce or Conor comes in way smaller, not committed. But Conor's never going to fight him. It would devalue him. So there's my thoughts, guys. Mike Perry loses to Jake Paul, 6th round TKO. Jake looked good. Mike looked tough. You got to take into consideration all the things like size, weight, all that I've said in this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on the fight down below. Who's next for Jake Paul? What do you want to see next for Mike Perry? Let me know in the comments down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to click like and subscribe down below, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you're interested in supporting the channel further and want access to members-only perks, become a channel member today for access to members-only live streams and some other perks. Link is in the description down below, or just click the join button on our channel homepage. If you're looking for some non-MMA content from me, go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World. I'll have that linked in the description down below as well. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.